Hey, I'm Joelle, and this is the Butch Yoga Podcast. And this is our very first episode, so thank you so much for joining. Really glad to have you here for this one. And since it is the very first episode, we are going to take some time to help you get to know what you can expect from this podcast. So I'll give you an outline for what you can expect from today's show. So first, I'm going to do a little intro of myself so you can get to meet me, know just a little bit more about me as we get started, but you'll be getting to know lots more about me along the way, but just want to give you some ideas. And then we'll be talking more about what types of shows we'll be doing. Let you know what you can expect from future episodes. Although, honestly, I gotta say, I'm not even fully sure what's going to happen here, but I'll let you know some of what I'm thinking for now, and we'll just have to find out what happens from here along the way. And then towards the end, I'm going to give you a kind of intro to what we're going to be talking about here. Going to cover some ideas that I think will help to set us up to be more successful as we continue to go through, because it's a lot what we're talking about. So it's good to have some groundwork laid and know what we're talking about here. So anyway, let's get into it. Hey, so I'm Joelle, like I said. Now is the time when I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. So first, I'm the person behind Butch Yoga. You may have seen me on Instagram, perhaps. Maybe that's how you got here, or somewhere else. Anyway, so glad to be here with you, to get to be speaking with you. And I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I'm a non-binary butch lesbian. Those are all words and labels, and those are ones that I find feel good to me. And, none of them really cover who I am 100%. And we'll be talking about those kinds of ideas more towards the end of the show, of how we can relate to words and ideas and labels. But I wanted to share that those are some of my labels that I go with, but that I don't feel like, but that's who I am forever. That's me. But, that's kind of me. That's close enough. That's about as close as, I can really get with words. So, more about me. I have been practicing yoga and meditation since 2007, which I don't even know what the math is on that, but I know it's more than 15 years. It's like a really long time since I started up with this stuff. And I could tell you more specifics about trainings and whatever kind of stuff, but I don't want to read a whole big long list. It's fine. That's not what really matters anyway. I don't know. If you're curious, you can ask me and I can send you a list that's probably not even complete, because I haven't been tracking this stuff so specifically myself. But yeah, just so you know, I've been at this for a while, and I've been teaching for a while too, since 2015, which, again, with math, that puts us at eight-ish years now. So It's been a while that I've been sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing wisdom. I'm like, can I even say that? But yeah, no, it's wisdom. I didn't make it up. That's the thing. I was like, wait, can I say it's wisdom? But it's like, yeah, it's I didn't make it up. It's wisdom that has been passed down through the ages and that I want to keep sharing with you because it's stuff that has really helped me in my life. So it feels important to pass it along. And then last point that I want to mention here, which I said I wasn't going to list a whole big thing of trainings and certifications or whatever, but one that I do feel is worth mentioning is that I have a master's degree in cognitive science. And I think that's pretty cool. If you're like, wait, but what does cognitive science mean? I'll tell you. So, cognitive, that word is like cognition, which is like a fancy way of saying thinking. Thinking, when we, like, cognitive is like stuff that has to do with thinking. And science is like a particular way of thinking about things. So I describe that degree as, that I was focused on thinking about thinking, which I mention here not just because, like, ooh, I have a master's degree, fancy, but because I want to share that that's part of my perspective that I'm coming into things with, that I really love to go deep into how the mind works, how we relate to ideas, how we experience things, how we experience our senses, how we take in new information, and what we do with it, how that influences our beliefs, how we can have the power to shift our beliefs for ourselves, and all of the different kinds of factors that influence our capabilities to do that. Because it's not just like, oh, with the power of positive thinking, you can do whatever you want. I mean, like, sure, kind of, but no, there's also all of these other forces that influence us that are really important to consider. So I wanted to share that that is some of my approach and some of how I think about who I am and what matters to me. So that's some info about me. Let's talk about this show, this podcast, and what you can expect here. So, first, we're going to have a lot of episodes that are just me talking about some topic. Different, like, spiritual topics, and reflecting on how those ideas can be useful to our lives. That's going to be a lot of the episodes. And I'm really looking forward to that. Honestly, I really love talking. That's part of why I thought it would be cool to start a podcast, because then I can just talk to you about stuff. And I hope that you want to talk to me too. Feel free to write in, send a DM, send an email, whatever. Let me know what you think, what you want to hear more about. If you have questions, this is, it's a podcast, so it's pretty much me talking to you, but please feel free to talk back. All right. And so, aside from shows where it will just be like me talking, we're also going to have shows where it's me talking to other people and asking them questions and hearing what they have to say. Because really, I think probably one of the coolest things about a podcast is the conversations that become possible through this medium. So we're going to be in convo here with other butches, studs, masks, and probably some other people too who don't identify in those ways. And we're going to be talking about like spirituality and stuff in life, you know, how we get through it and how we can do that in ways that are going to feel better to you. And not just feel better in a sense of like purely hedonistic pleasure, although that's nice too, but that feel better to you in like deep ways of feeling like you are living in alignment with who you want to be. Okay, and aside from that, like that we'll have shows where it's just me talking, or we'll have shows that are interviews. We're going to have other types of shows. As this keeps going, I'm going to keep having different ideas about what we can do with it. So I want to build in that space from the beginning that there will be other things happening, like maybe we'll have some Q&As. Maybe we'll do live coaching. Like, I am a coach, and I think it could be cool to do some episodes where someone comes on live and, you know, talks about what they have going on and coach them through it. I think that sounds like a cool episode. Also, we'll have stuff like guided meditations, different practice sessions that you can do that like you can get through just by listening. So yeah, watch out for different shows that we'll have coming. All right, and as we talk about the types of shows, I also want to help to set your expectations about the show length and the frequency of these shows. So first, to talk about frequency, I want to let you know that we are aiming for a new episode each week. But I want to say just from the beginning, because I know myself, sometimes that might not happen. And that's okay. That's okay. You know, I'm going to be real with you that I put off starting this for several months already because I was worried about my ability to be consistent with it. And I ended up deciding, you know, it's okay. It's okay if we don't have a new episode every week, so long as this like just keeps going, you know? So that's kind of what you can expect. Like, if there's not an episode one week, it's okay. There probably will be the next week. And I'll do my best to let you know what's going on as we go. And in terms of the show length, this is... I feel like I'm really not actually telling you anything here, but some shows might be shorter. Some shows might be longer. And you'll always be able to see that on whatever platform you're listening to, you know, that you could probably see like the length of the show. So yeah, you can just like tune in to that, and always feel free to like pause it and come back if the show's like too long for you to listen to in one go. Like that's chill. So yeah, in terms of show length and frequency, I just want to set you up to know that I'm not exactly sure. That I've been thinking about it, but we're just gonna have to see what happens. So I just wanted to let you know that's the vibe, that we don't really know, but we are open to what's gonna unfold and see what happens here. Okay, so that was some of the like basics that I wanted to cover about like, hey, this is a podcast. But now we're going to get into our like first topic that we're going to talk about, which it's so funny because what we are going to talk about now is how you can't really talk about what we're going to be talking about. So so I hope you got that. I hope you're here with me, and I'll say more about that. So, okay, what do I mean that you can't talk about what we're going to be talking about? What are we even going to do on this show if we can't talk about the topics that we're talking about? Well, okay, we are going to get started with one of my favorite spiritual texts, which I am going to be quoting a lot on this podcast because I just quote it a lot in my life all the time. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm just constantly like, well, the Tao Te Ching says, like, so now I'm going to do that for you. So we are going to start from the beginning of the Tao Te Ching, from chapter 1. Oh wait, first before I quote it, let me just say that the Tao Te Ching is the primary text of Taoism, which is a religion that comes from China, and it's really old. It's one of the most practiced systems in the world. I forget like what number it is like ranking in popularity, but it's like pretty high up there. And I'd say in terms of my personal rankings, it's one of my faves. The Tao Te Ching is an amazing little book. I have my copy right here. If you're watching on video, you can see it. It is like a very beat up copy. I have had this for I've probably had this for about 15 years, honestly, something like that. And it looks like it. And yeah, so that's a little bit about the Tao Te Ching. And now we're going to get into one of the lines from the first chapter that I feel like does a really nice job setting us up with an introduction for what we're going to be talking about here. So we've got two translations here. The first one is the translation by Stephen Mitchell, which is the translation of this little copy that I have here. And the next translation is by Ursula Le Guin, which I also have that somewhere around here, but I don't know exactly where. So we've got two different translations that we're looking at, which is interesting because, yeah, well, okay. Let's get into what the Tao Te Ching says. All right, so first one. This line says, "The name that can be named is not the eternal name." I'm going to repeat that. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Okay, that's from the Stephen Mitchell translation. And now from the Ursula Le Guin translation. The name you can say isn't the real name. Okay, one more time. It's so good. I feel like it's good to like repeat it. The name you can say isn't the real name. Okay, so I told you that what we were going to talk about is how we can't talk about what we're talking about. And I feel like these lines from the Tao Te Ching really get to that. That any name that you use isn't like really the name for it. And that's like what I was referring to when I was talking about like some of my identities, like that I'm a non-binary butch lesbian. It's like, okay, sure. Those are words that I can say I identify with. But I know none of those are the real name. You know, none of those are like the real description of who I am. There is no word for that. There is no word. And that applies to everything or anything, you know, that applies to yourself, that applies to talking about like God or spirituality or whatever you want to pick, that any word that we use, any name that you want to call it, will never fully do the job of describing what that is. So it's a thing about words. They're really weird. It's really weird. We're going to be like talking about this more over other episodes, but I just wanted to like give an intro to it now, that words are sticky. Definitions are really weird, and labels can sometimes they can feel freeing when you find one that feels more right for you. And that's so useful. But labels can also make you feel trapped if you forget this, if you forget that, like, oh, that's not the real name. But the thing with words is they can be so useful for pointing to things. And what do I mean by that? Like, pointing to things. Okay. I'm gonna go with a little like metaphor. So imagine that you are outside with me. It's nighttime. We're under the full moon. And I point up to the moon with my finger. I'm pointing my finger towards the moon. And I'm like, wow, look at the moon. So my finger that's pointing at the moon, it's like that finger is saying, like, look at the moon. But the finger is not what I want you to be looking at. It's not, the finger is not the moon. You know, the finger is pointing towards the moon. And that's how it is with words and labels. Like, I can say the word butch, but that's not the thing itself. It's kind of pointing towards something that's beyond what that word itself is. Does that make sense? It's like so abstract, but I'm doing my best to like it's so funny to be talking about words because you have to use words to talk about them. So it's kind of like we're like trapped in this thing with language. So we're doing our best here. Hang with me. Okay. So to go with like the finger pointing at the moon thing, it's like what can happen a lot with like spirituality, I think, with so many things is we've got the finger that's pointing at the moon, and instead of looking at the moon, we end up looking at the finger and getting really hung up in what's going on with the finger instead of focusing on the moon. So let's remember that what we're aiming for here is the moon and not the finger. That what we are talking about here is something that transcends language, but that we need to use language to talk about it. Okay. I think some ideas got expressed there. I think so. Definitely feel free to send in your comments or questions about those ideas. Like, I'd love to hear if you like felt like you got that or how that landed for you. So okay, continuing talking about language and how we can't really talk about the things that we want to talk about. So aside from spirituality, which we like touched on a little bit already, and how with the finger and the moon that we can't really talk about what we're talking about, but we can try to like point towards it. Similarly with gender, we have different words that we use to describe gender. But ultimately, the experience of gender is going to be beyond anything that we can name. There's so many different words. I like non-binary because it has like that non in it, which kind of says like, hey, you can't really describe this. You can kind of say what it's not, but it's like hard to say what it is. To me, that appeals to me in a certain way, but it's still like my experience of my gender is still beyond what that label can describe for me. There's other words that I use too, like gender fluid. I think that's cool. Love like having the like fluidity built in there. I feel like that's like a nice kind of image, but also that word isn't exactly it either. And you do your best to find the words that fit, or maybe you decide that none of those words fit, so you just don't even mess around with labels or anything like that. But still, that when you try to relate to your gender, it's like, what is that? How do you describe it? Or is it something that you feel is just totally beyond any description? Or like maybe if you try to describe it, you just have to like get poetic to even begin to approach what it feels like there. And so I want to say that that's how we are approaching spirituality too here. That we are going to be talking about different ideas and concepts and practices from different systems, but all of the words that we're going to use are like the finger with the moon. Please don't get hung up on what the finger is doing. Stay focused on the moon. That's really the goal. Because words, I'm going to mess up words. I'm going to use the wrong words. It's going to happen. That's just part of how it is with words, because their meanings shift over time. Your understanding of certain words might be different from my understanding of them. So I want to give us all that grace that, don't be so concerned about saying things perfectly, because you never can. You can never use the perfect words, because that's just beyond, the potential that words have. Words, there aren't perfect words. It's just how it is with words. So realizing that words at their best can be like kinds of tools, kind of like a map. And one of my favorite quotes about this concept is that the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. So that means that you can, if you think about territory, like land, what a map does is describe it in simpler terms so that you can navigate it. But it's not a perfect description. It's not like a one-to-one description, because if you had that, you couldn't even use it. That would just be the land itself. So remembering that what we're doing is working with maps of reality, but that the map is never the reality itself. Okay, and here we are. This is, the Butch Yoga Podcast. We are talking about words. Let's talk just a little bit about the words Butch and yoga. We'll probably be talking about this more in future episodes too, but it's the first episode. Just wanted to touch on it a little bit. So, okay, both of these words have deep histories and lineages and just profound meaning beyond a dictionary definition. So I just want to say that both of these words can be so rich in their meanings, but we're just going to touch on it here. What are these maps? What are these tools or fingers? And what are they pointing at? So, okay, the word butch, fascinating word here. And aside from all of the historical, community, background, all of that history, just that the word butch means having an appearance or other qualities of a type traditionally seen as masculine. Interesting. Okay. So, more masculine vibes there. And it just brings up so much to me. Just even naming that, what does it mean to be masculine versus feminine? What what does it mean that an appearance or qualities are seen as masculine? Like, what does that mean? And it reminds me of another quote by that same guy we quoted on the last in the last little section there. Korzybski was the one who he said, "The map is not the territory." He also has a quote talking about this language stuff where he says, "Whatever you say it is, it isn't. Whatever you say it is, it isn't." And that just feels so tricky. Like, what? What do you mean? Whatever you say it is, it isn't. And it's like, to me, saying, oh, that this is, that butch means like traditionally seen as masculine. Just saying that brings up how much about me is not that. Is not masculine at all, would not be seen as traditionally masculine at all. And I think that's part of what is so funny with words and labels and identifying. That as soon as you try on a label or a word for yourself, it's almost like your mind starts to pick out all of the ways that you are not that. And it's just really interesting to notice how that works. And that goes back to that quote from the Tao Te Ching, that the name that can be named is not the eternal name. Whatever name you come up with, you're going to find ways that, okay, that's not it. And then, okay. So that's what we're going to say about Butch for now, because there's so much that we could say about that. Let's move on to the yoga part, which I'll also, before we even get into that definition, just going to say that what we're doing here with yoga is also very, like, whatever you say it is not. Because when I talk about yoga, I am talking about it in a broader sense than you might be thinking of it. When you think of yoga, maybe you think about it as like stretching, like certain kinds of physical movements, which are known as asana in Sanskrit. They're like different movements that we do with the body, but that is not the main focus of what we are going to be talking about in this podcast, or the main focus of like Butch yoga in general. We do that too, but that's not the main thing going on. What is the main thing going on? Well, I'd tell you if I could, but as I said, we can't really talk about it. But we're going to try. We're going to try, because this is a podcast, so we have to try to talk. So, all right, going into this definition that I found from Google search here of what we could find about a definition for yoga, that it comes from the Sanskrit root yuj, which means union, to unite or to connect. So that's something that maybe you have heard before, that yoga means union. Union of what? What's being connected? What's being united? I think that's the question that comes up for me with hearing that. Like, okay, yoga is about connecting something. But what? And part of me wants to just be like, well, We'll find out, won't we? But no, I also want to tell you what I think, kind of like a spoiler alert for everything, Just gonna give it away from the beginning. Here's the big secret is that it's about connecting yourself to yourself. It's about connecting you to everything. 'Cause everything is yourself. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's part of the thing of why words don't work, because words are about separating things. And really, in the practices that we're going to do, in the concepts that we're going to be learning, it's going to be focused on how we can remember this connection that we have to everything. Remembering the truth of who you really are, and that truth extends beyond any labels to cover everything. So, okay, I feel like we're off to a good start here. First episode. All right. Let's see. And we are coming to the end of this first episode here, and I'm so excited for these ideas that we're going to share here. To get into these concepts, to open up how you think about it in different ways. And I want to close out this section with some other lines from the Tao Te Ching, from chapter 14. And this is just from the Stephen Miller translation. And it says, approach it, and there is no beginning. Follow it, and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it. At ease in your own life. I'm going to read it again because it's just so good. Whenever I quote something, I'll probably read it again because, why not? Let's do it. All right. Approach it, and there is no beginning. Follow it, and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it. At ease in your own life. Tao Te Ching, chapter 14. I love it. I love that line that you can't know it, but you can be it. I feel like that applies so beautifully to gender, to thinking about gender. I know I can get real messed up in my mind when I try to know what my gender is. What does that mean? But I can be it. I can be it. And when I'm not twisting myself up in knots trying to know it and pin it down, then I can be it, and then I can feel at ease in who I am. And remembering that there is no beginning, there's no end to it. It's an ongoing, unfolding process, and letting yourself be at ease with that. Okay. Wow. Well, what a first episode this has been. I'm going to close it up here now and let you know about how you can connect with Butch Yoga more from here. So, first off, If you're not already getting the email newsletter, sign up for that. Get emails. I send them out. And when you sign up for the email list, you get a free copy of a little, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like, it's kind of like a video game, but it's not. It's like actually just a presentation, but it's more fun than a regular presentation, really, I swear. Anyway, it's called The Quest for Happiness, and it is like a little guided journey through different scenarios to introduce you to ideas from Buddhism about how you can bring more happiness into your life. So you can get that for free, plus Butch Yoga emails when you go to, the URL is bit.ly, bit.ly/quest for happiness, all lowercase. Okay, so that's the email newsletter. Then we got YouTube. What's up? Like and subscribe on YouTube. That's what all the YouTubers say, right? Just just wait. Yeah, we got a YouTube channel. Got more stuff coming on there. If you are listening to this podcast, you can watch it on YouTube, and you can see the slides because I got like a little presentation going too. And you can also watch me bouncing around in the corner of the screen. And if you're like also a visual person, yeah, tune in for the podcast on YouTube. And you can also find different past classes there and subscribe to make sure you see all the stuff coming. So you can find us there on youtube.com/at Butch Yoga. So the little like @ sign, Butch Yoga. Or just like search for Butch Yoga on YouTube, and you'll find us there. I think, yeah, we're like the only Butch Yoga. I think there's like a bulldog named Butch who does yoga if you search for it, so you might want to check that out too. But but make sure you subscribe to the actual Butch Yoga channel. And then there's Instagram, where we've got memes on memes on memes that you can scroll through, post memes from other accounts and the stories sometimes. That's fun. There's some short little practice videos in the reels if you want to check those out. But yeah, Instagram is a very fun place to connect with us. Just search for Butch Yoga. No spaces, no periods, nothing like that. We just got Butch Yoga there on Instagram. So come find us there. And watch out for more podcast episodes coming. This was just the first one, but we got more. There's more coming. I don't know exactly how many more, but I want to keep doing this for a long time with you. So thank you so much for being here for this first episode. It is so exciting, so good to share this with you. Would love to hear any feedback that you have on it. Feel free to send a DM, send an email, comment on a YouTube video. I'm like, what other ways? I don't know. Rate the show on whatever platform you listen to podcasts, and yeah, keep thinking about what we talked about here, about words and names, and how none of them will ever fully describe who you are. Or if you have found a word that you're like, this is the word, this is my forever word, name, label, please tell me about it. I would love to hear, but I feel like more likely than not, you're like, oh yeah, no, there is no like forever label, which It's so fascinating to think about. There's like so much more there, but we're gonna have to save that for future episodes. So can't wait to talk to you then. We're gonna end this one for now. All right. Thanks so much, y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye.